It's the Security Weekly News. We hope it could be streaming, maybe not streaming. You just never know. It's like everything today, up, down, sideways, who knows. But it is episode 467 of Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. It's Friday, the 11th of April, and welcome to the show. We've got Windows 95, Shuckworm, Ottokit, DCs, EC2, IAB, OSS, Recall, Josh Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. Imagine a world where every threat, ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits, is stopped before it can even begin. ThreatLocker makes that world a reality with a zero-trust approach to cybersecurity. By giving you granular control on every executable that can happen in your environment, ThreatLocker protects your business around the clock. No more guessing, no more gaps, just rock-solid protection that keeps your operations running smoothly and your data secure. Discover how ThreatLocker's least privilege approach can safeguard your organization against known and unknown threats. Take the first step toward total peace of mind. Visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker today. From the island of Elba, it's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. Hit that like and subscribe button like there's no tomorrow, or really bad things are going to happen. I mean, I saw it in a dream. Fire, floods, water, famine, people with their hair on fire, ice, cats, opossums, and wombats all intermarrying. I don't know. It's the end. The end times, I tells you. The end. Yeah. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSAC Conference 2025 full conference pass. RSA Conference will take place April 28th to May 1st in San Francisco, also on demand. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC25. That's securityweekly.com/RSAC25 and use the secret code 5U5 SEC Weekly. Hope we'll see you there. I'm even going to be there, so I am actually going to be there now. So drop by on Broadcast Alley or whatever they call it, and I'll be happy to chat. All right, it's an oldie but a goodie. A Russian state-backed group called Shuckworm. I don't know what that means. I'm not even going to go there. But Shuckworm has been targeting a military division in the Ukraine using attacks developed from removable drives. I mean, all the air gapping in the world isn't going to help you when Ted from Legal plugs the old free taco flash drive into the company server to get that discount, right? Symantec said this campaign started in February of 2025 and continued until March, with the attackers deploying an updated version of Gamma Steal, which is an info stealer, and it was being used to exfiltrate data from military sites in the Ukraine. Now, you know, I just brought this story up because I know you're saying I'm not in the Ukraine. Russia's not after me. They might be after you, but, you know, they may be after you soon, or they may be in charge soon. It's hard to tell. But this kind of attack has been used a lot in the past, everywhere from Stuxnet to the FBI and so forth. And I think it would actually work in a lot of enterprises. You know, somebody finds a flash drive, not you, of course, you'd never fall for such a silly attack, but somebody would, you know, and maybe the flash drive is labeled secret investment information, free hot dogs, nude photos of Robin, whatever. You know, someone will pick it up and stick it in a USB port somewhere. So it's probably not a bad time to think about your policy of how you allow what can be stuck where and who can do the sticking kind of stuff. You know, I mean, certainly, you know, in group policy, you can restrict the ability to actually load, USB drives and limit what they can do. BitLocker is another approach that companies use that basically when somebody plugs a flash drive in, if it's not been encrypted by BitLocker, it won't allow it. And even in Linux, Linux is trickier. You can get rid of the driver module that's being loaded in the kernel, and then it just won't load it. But it can also cause all your USB keyboards and mice to stop, and then you're sort of sitting there going, now what do I do? Because so be careful with this in Linux. Not that I ever did that, because you may just end up going like, oh, I can't fix it because I can't use the keyboard now because the USB keyboard. Does anybody have a serial keyboard? Yeah. Does the server, although a bunch of my servers have those old, those old 9-pin connectors and stuff, if you can find a keyboard. Now, group policy will let you set up groups and say these groups can, these groups can't, and what they kind of do. And it's got a lot of like fine-tuning subtleties in it. But if nothing else, just remind your people to keep their USB keys in their pockets. And, don't be sticking them in servers. Don't be sticking them in desktops or anything, because they may well be contaminated. Threat intel as well is becoming more of a problem in terms of being able to parse it all quickly, at least from my perspective and from some of my clients' perspectives, because they don't have full threat intel groups. Criminals, however, have great organizations now. They're fully funded, fully staffed, and they have no trouble hiring. And they're now showing that they have no problem taking advantage of threat intel disclosures very, very quickly. So within hours of disclosures to the public of a flaw that would allow bypassing authentication in Ottokit, or it used to be called SureTriggers, which are plugins for WordPress, within hours of those being disclosed, they were being exploited in the wild. A bug bounty was paid out to Mike Myers, comedian or ruthless psycho killer. I bet they get tired of hearing those jokes. Do you know how many times people have asked me about my hair? Because there used to be a newscaster in Rhode Island named Doug White, who was known for his like pompadour hairdo and all this stuff. And, people say on misty winter nights in Rhode Island, you can still hear the hiss of hairspray cans in the wind. And sometimes when I'm outside at night, I just get a whiff of Aquanet, floating on the breeze. That Doug White died in 2007. So despite the fact that some people in Rhode Island will argue that he's not dead and they saw him last week, he is dead. I checked. I called his family. It was like, is he dead? Could I get some evidence? It didn't go over well, but could be haunting me though. Get in line. I've been haunted by the best and I'm still here.
Wait. You mean that you called the family and said, hi, this is Doug White. Is Doug White dead?
Yeah. I just want to verify. Okay.
I don't normally interrupt you, but I had to ask that one.
People argue with me in Rhode Island. I mean, they literally, you go to a restaurant and they go, oh my God, I thought it was you. I thought it was Doug White coming in tonight. I'm like, yeah, no, he's been dead for a while. So that would be pretty bad. You probably don't want, the living dead in your restaurant. And they're like, no, he's not dead. I think I saw him last week at the Ocean State Job Lots. He was buying, and you're like, no, he's dead. I checked. Okay. Anyway, so PatchStack, which is a WordPress research group, said that the first exploitation attempts of this stuff in the wild were I know it was it was an abrupt, sharp cut. But the first attempts of this happened just hours after the initial disclosure. So you might want to think about, how do you parse all the threat intel that pops up, and and how do you get from I've got threat intel to I've taken action against this threat intel before the criminal groups, which are well-funded, well-staffed, and ready, willing, and able, are already exploiting it. I mean, it does make sense that these criminals have good news feeds, and so that they can find opportunities before they're patched, and they know they're going to have to act quickly because people are going to patch. But, there is a patch for this problem, but what's your time frame to patch? How long before you patch your WordPress site? If something's announced, it's a good exercise. Just like right now, if today something on your site, pick whatever you want, is announced, an exploit, how long before you would have a patch in place? So think about that. Domain controllers, the big DC, giant steaming piles of attractive targets for attackers. Microsoft is warning that compromises on these, critical devices could be, bad. I mean, it seemed like the big book of obvious from the headline, like, you mean an attack on your domain controller is bad? Imagine that. But the warning, and they take this a lot further, so before I bash them too hard, the warning, though, basically says that you should be aware that attackers are more heavily targeting domain controllers in order to obtain a privileged position on networks and move laterally to pretty much anything. In a report they released on the 9th, Microsoft said that domain controllers were breached in more than 78% of human-operated attacks, and they represented the primary device that was used to spread ransomware in over 35% of the cases they observed. Now, I mean, it's still obvious if you ask me. I mean, if I'm going to attack something, would you really rather take over old Gil's laptop or use old or and get nothing, or use old Gil's admin account on the domain controller? Yeah, I mean, because if you can get into the domain controller, I mean, somebody's going to have a bad day. So it might be time to evaluate your domain controllers. Like, you have them, how many do you have? Like, something I saw a lot was people had old systems that were maybe even running older versions, like running old 2012s and things, that they just used as secondary domain controllers, because that used to be sort of a model for this. And so they had, they'd realize we had a domain controller, but we've got a really old domain controller that's sitting in the Seattle office that's still running. So those recycled ones may still be in your network somewhere. They could be just as much of a risk because those things replicate. And if you don't have them set up correctly, a secondary domain controller can replicate stuff onto the primary domain controller. I know yours is set up perfectly, but a lot of people's are not. And then you also should probably think about who can access that domain controller. I mean, I've seen stuff where they've got 35 people, including 7 who are dead and 3 who got fired, who were all sharing passwords for the domain controller admin account. So, and I mean, if I'm a user in the hot dog safety division, can I use my creds to log into the domain controller? And you'd be surprised how often that works. I mean, maybe I have low level creds, but I get in anyway, and then I can try to escalate. Or worse, did I use that same username and password on MrFuFu.com, which got compromised by a 12-year-old kid in Pearl River last night, and who is now in our domain controller deciding on a quick way to earn college tuition by ransomwaring you? Think about it. You might be getting ready to have a bad day, or be paranoid, or both. Probably not a bad thing. I love the cloud. I do. I can't afford to use it for the most part, but I do love the idea. I mean, putting resources that are replicated across multiple nodes all over the place that are, most accessible to users is a kind of mainframe idea. I mean, that was sort of the, premise of the mainframe, was that, you could always get to things. But regardless of that, the more doors that you open, the more risk you assume. So Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, which is called EC2, or I don't know if they call it EC squared or EC2. I've just always read it. But it was being targeted last month using a server-side request forgery to try to steal exposed EC2 metadata from unsecured websites, according to F5 Labs. So the EC2 instance, I'm just going to call it EC2. The EC2 instance metadata service enables metadata for certain tasks like connections to external applications from this cloud system. It allows that to be accessed at runtime without needing to use Amazon EC2 console or the AWS CLI or any of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like an API in a way. But AWS said their instance metadata is not protected by authentication or crypto. So if someone can access the instance, well, technically they could query and receive the metadata. Yeah, that starts to get cringy feeling. I'm like, well, isn't an instance designed to be accessed, and therefore somebody can access it and you didn't? Oh my God. Well, so the way this worked is this forgery, the attacks basically were going to the web server, and then they were sending it to 169.254.169.254, which is kind of an odd address in my opinion. And basically what it is it corresponds to the IMDS endpoint where the EC2 instances retrieve their instance metadata. So it's kind of like a built-in loopback sort of thing. And so basically this inbound get command is querying the endpoint. So they're just forging it, and it replies. And that would be, as they say, bad. So probably your web application firewall should be limiting that traffic anyway. But specifically now, you may want to be blocking inbound traffic that contains strings like 169.254, 169.254. And that would help prevent somebody from doing this until maybe somebody realizes that this is publicly accessible from anybody that has instance access, and they might need to encrypt and or require authentication for it. Yeah, there may be a way to turn that on. I don't know. Now, I'm sure you've heard of this. IABs. I saw this and I was like, I was like, what is an IAB? Because I think there's something else with that, but it's an initial access broker. Criminal activity is so prevalent now, we actually have acronyms for the portions and industry segments within the criminal world, like organized crime, like we got the slot machine division and the hooker division. This is the IAB, the initial access broker, which sounds very nice and formal. So these are the people who get access to your networks and then sell that access to others. So it's a kind of middleman in the world of crime. It's like the guy at the shipyard that picks up the phone and calls Tony Soprano's people, calls Paulie Walnuts and goes, "Hey, Paulie, guess what? That container you wanted just came in." Maybe that was a plot on The Wire. I'm not sure. Did Tony Soprano have shipping containers? Probably. Port of New Jersey. Come on. But anyway, I mean, if all I do is run around social engineering or brute forcing or whatever just to get access to credentials, or even just collecting them off the dark web, then I can get into your domain controller using Gil.Starkman's account. And I got that password with a simple phishing attack on old Gil at that bar in Akron, Ohio one night last September when old Gil had a few too many old granddads, that kind of thing. And, left their phone laying on the table. Yeah. I mean, I try those same creds on your domain controller and I'm in. Now, some people would immediately begin doing naughty things to you or defacing, the corporate founder's painting on the website, but I don't. I just create a very subtle account called _kernel_sub_decontroller and give it a nice complex, super strong password so it doesn't set off any alarms, and it just lays around for a long time. It doesn't do anything. Even the creation of the account probably got pruned out of the logs after a couple of weeks. And, it's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. It's not trying to access anything. It's not causing any problems. It's just an account. So maybe I log into it occasionally and get it some more access privileges, or maybe not. But then I advertise it and sell the access to the highest bidder who really, really, really wants to ransomware your company. Now, this could actually be a kind of vertical integration supply chain in crime. I sell access to a ransomware as a service provider who then sells pre-built ransomware and says, "Hey, yeah, if you want to take out Barone trash disposal in New Jersey, I've already got access and we already have pre-built ransomware for it. So all you really have to do, Carl Bongle of East Orange, is just pay us and we'll just push a button and the whole thing happens." So Carl commits the crime, pays the ransomware as a service person a percentage, who pays me a percentage for granting access. It's a whole industry. We've got HR, we've got marketing, the whole things. And it's like, and most of us are pretty insulated from this crime because, all I did was create an account. Yeah, it's a crime, but where am I located? If they go arrest somebody, it's Carl. So, yeah, I don't make as much money as Carl, but I don't take much risk either. This is a big growing market, and the average listing prices for these kind of services have now 58% of the listings were under $1,000 for 2024, which was up from 41% in 2023. They obviously have different price points. Imagine that. Try our platinum service. I think the real danger here is that you're compromised by these people and you don't even know it. And that's sort of more threat intel stuff too, because if they're advertising, I can get you into Barone trash waste disposal and it's being advertised all over the place for $5,000 and you don't know it because you don't have threat intel and this stuff. That's pretty scary. But the IABs can focus on getting access. They don't spend their time trying to break in or do any of this kind of stuff. They just want to get a way to get in that they can sell. And that means they are going to be pretty dangerous. So it's kind of like hiding a guy in a safe and having the safe delivered to a warehouse. And the guy just sits in there for a couple of months before springing out and stealing all your stuffed giraffe collection, like my heist movie that never got made. But it's worth thinking about. Now, I love open source, and the idea that I can examine the code, even if I can't always understand it, is appealing. But there's also problems with open source because people can, of course, abuse it. 3 newly discovered open source software packages have been found infecting legitimate software with Trojanized patches. So because they were able to analyze the whole thing, they essentially wrote a patch to a piece of software that may or may not be on your system. And if you download this other package, it looks for that stuff and then patches it with bad things. I mean, that's pretty scary, right? I mean, I can put these patches out there and they could actually be legitimate patches even, but they actually can reach out. And of course, this was actually a case where these three things were people downloaded them, clicked on them, they didn't appear to do anything, but and what they did was of course patch something else. I mean, putting Trojans in Wares games has been going on since that old StarTrek.com file on the BBS, right? I mean, but recently, Reversing Labs observed that this new technique is sneakier and it's more persistent than all those old approaches because of, shortly everybody figured out StarTrek.com was, don't download this. So now instead, I have a working StarTrek.com. That's, people get it, they download it, they play the text-based game as Mr. Sulu and go, wow, this is so cool. And then suddenly some NPM site posts a patch that would let you add Riker to the game. And you download it and you play as Riker. And you're really excited, but much like the real Riker, the patch came with some space herpes. I mean, sorry, Riker, you know we love you, but we just don't want you to love us back. I mean, stick to the Betazoids. They have really great STD research there, I'm telling you. Anyway, in this case, Reversing Labs said that a package called PDF to Office was live for more than a week and had 200 downloads. It was billed as a tool for converting PDFs to Office files. So I guess people wanted to do that. I mean, the file, of course, was not what it said. It was a crypto wallet stealer, which normally you'd expect to get detected, but it's really sneaky. What it did was inject functionality into the crypto wallets that it found on the systems and cause those crypto wallets to redirect outgoing transactions to the attacker's crypto wallet. You didn't even see that. It's like a magic trick. You're just happily going along, sending out crypto, and poof, it's all disappearing. So again, it's not just APIs, it's not just add-ons, but now they could patch something, and that's just a nasty trick. I mean, users who ran the original app probably thought it just didn't work, right? They click it and it doesn't do anything, and they said, "Oh well, it's a piece of junk, so just delete it." But it's too late. The crypto wallet's already been patched at that point. So be very careful what you download, and stay away from Mr. Riker. Sorry, Jonathan. You're a great person, but yeah, Riker. All right. Well, it looks like here it comes. They're finally rolling it out. Recall. Yep, here it comes. The dreaded and concerning product named Recall that Microsoft has been teasing they're going to force onto us for a while is now starting to roll out. Now, the original rollout was in 2024, and everyone not just cringed, but puked in their waste baskets, ran screaming from the building, set themselves on fire, all kinds of stuff. It was not even an opt-out then. It was like, this is going to be put on your machine. You will use it. You will like it, and you will tell us it's great. And if you don't, yeah. Well, people, I mean, so now when that first came out, it was just a disaster. They pulled it back. And then it returns, on and off through 2024. You've seen me do this story and talk about how scary this thing is. And, they got the same reaction every single time. People covered their children's eyes. A man vomited in the corner, but he might've been drinking Sterno squeezed through a stock all day. But then again, maybe not. But you will get it. Microsoft wants you to have it. You don't want it, but they want you to have it. You need it. You're going to use it. And what are you going to do? Use Linux? Yeah. Microsoft says the product will be rolled out worldwide and is currently being rolled out in preview, probably without telling you. The EU will not be getting it though, not until much, much later because of the privacy issues with it. So, it's like they're going, it's safe. It's your privacy safe. Everything is safe. But yeah, the EU won't be getting it because we can't comply with their privacy requirements. And I'm like, wait a minute. So currently they say they have added an opt-in that you will have to opt in. But we all know how that goes too, right? And it'll be like a version and they're like, yeah, no more opt-in. It's just there. You can't turn it off, or you can turn it off, but good luck. Then the system quits. Sorry, Microsoft, the opt-in helps, but I still don't trust you. I mean, if you don't recall, see what I did there? Recall is a scary, scary thing that snapshots your desktop every so many seconds. So whatever you're working on, it snapshots it and it stores the snapshots in a database that's on your system. An AI on your system using your system resources is processing this database and seeing what you're up to. And supposedly this will facilitate you searching for things later, finding things that you've already done. I guess it's going, yeah, you already wrote that paper last week and all that drinking has ruined your brain or whatever. But the concerns range from just general trust, in my opinion. Microsoft says the data is encrypted on your local machine, and they never, ever, ever release products that have exploits, do they? Critics, there's never a patch comes out for these products because the encryption is flawed or there's a way into it from, remotely or whatever. Critics say that even things you don't want to see, you don't want preserved, like say Snapchat messages or Signal messages that were encrypted but wasn't encrypted on your screen. It may be encrypted in transmission, but it's sitting on your screen unencrypted. I'm like, how do you work with proprietary material? It's being put into a Microsoft-controlled database processed by an AI, and who knows how many exploits are going to be in this thing. And it's in there forever. Good luck getting rid of it. Microsoft said they do not share this information. They don't have access to this information, but Oracle wasn't breached either. Sorry, folks, I don't trust you. You're still issuing patches for Windows 10, which came out in 2015. Yep. So I wonder how long it'll be before a patch for recall is released. Probably within minutes of it actually going live. I'm not going to do it. If you try to make me, I think I really will stop using your products. I do not want this crap on my system. I don't want my desktop imaged and put into an AI and processed for my own benefit. I just don't trust you. I'm sorry. I know I can't really make threats against Microsoft, and probably some Microsoft thugs are landing in my front yard right now to deport me to El Salvador. But hey, that's the way it goes. Now, I will be happy to have endless images of Josh Marpet captured from my desktop. That would be okay with me. So, and being able to refer to Josh, through my AI enabled database will always make me happy, because then I can have an AI Josh. I can just turn and go, Josh, what do you think? And he'll go, Doug, that's a bad idea, because that's what he's always saying. And he's always right.
Yeah. Let's be honest. That's what I always say, Doug. So
I'm just like, should I drink this, Josh? And he's like, that's a bad idea.
Well, it depends. If it's your absinthe, then fine, go for it. But if it's, some of that weird crap you drink, then no.
I'm going to mix chartreuse and heavy cream.
Oh, God. Dude. That's not even.
It's called a gold Cadillac. All these like sorority girls used to come in the bar and order them. They'd be, can we get a gold Cadillac? And I'm like, would you like a barf bag with that?
Okay. Anyway,
it made for a colorful display in the alley later.
I was just talking to somebody about New Orleans. I used to bounce on Bourbon Street, and I was saying, if you could wring out those cobblestones, you'd get half a glass of puke.
You have a rainbow of something. Yeah.
Oh, it'd be horrible, horrifying. Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about a slightly more less.
Okay, no more gold Cadillacs today.
Yeah. And so there's a new executive order. I know, surprise, surprise. And the new executive order is about modernizing defense acquisition and spurring innovation in the defense industrial base. So what does this have to do with Security Weekly News? And the answer is that they're doing regulatory turnover right now on the DFARS, the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulations, is all around CMMC. And I've been involved in CMMC forever and a day. I helped write the original version of it. And it's been fascinating trying to fix what the Defense Department really didn't do. They didn't check that people were securing data properly. So they came up with CMMC to secure data properly. You have to be certified, like PCI. No, Jeff Mann isn't here. But you have to be certified in order for you to handle credit cards properly. Okay, that makes sense. We're good with that. It's money. Well, defense procurement regulations are also massive amounts of money, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And so what they've done is they've built this CMMC program in order to secure the data behind all of these acquisition programs. So you have to be certified that you're going to handle the data appropriately in order to get awarded a contract. Okay, so this new executive order is, okay, cool. We're going to do that, except every time you add a new regulation, 10 more have to go away. Seriously, that's not a joke. They have a 10 for 1 rule. If you add a regulation, you have to kill 10 other regulations. Now, I'm going to tell you that the problem here is that, while I love the idea, I do. There's so many regulations, it's almost impossible. There's an entire job category. I think it's 1102 is the job category of people just for procurement specialists to understand these regulations. When you have to have an entire job just around understanding procurement regulations, you may have a problem. Okay, I get it. But can you tell me what the effect of taking away 10 regulations is going to be? Just studying that effect. Why did they put the regulation in the first place? Was it for set-asides? Was it to protect against corruption? Was it because of conflicts of interest? What was the reason that reg was put in the first place? And then if you just yank it out, what's going to happen after that? What's going to come rearing up from the swamps of literally the 19th and 20th centuries to go, oh, I'm back. You've got the swamp thing of corruption. You've got it's just terrifying. So while this executive order at its heart has a great idea, I want to make it so it's faster, easier, that it's more effective to get things for our warfighters. This is cool. I'm good with that. The way they're doing it is, can we say, interesting? And I think that it's going to be a big problem in a lot of ways for a lot of companies. Why? Well, what do you mean a lot of companies? It's the government regulations. Yes, but if you're a defense industrial based company, if you contract to the federal government, which by the way is most universities, is a significant amount, I think it's like 300,000 companies in the US contract to the Department of Defense alone, not much less the entire government. Wow, that's a lot of regulations that are going to change, and you have to determine, is it worth our while to try to get procurement? Government contracting is a numbers game. It takes 18 to 36 months to get a government contract, and every single one you have to work really, really hard, and at least 3/4 of them, that's a rough number, you're going to lose. So if you're going to lose that many, you've got to hit a lot of them in order to get on to get on those contracts, to win some, which means you've got to put so much effort into understanding the current regulations so that you can make sure that every proposal you put in, every question you ask, everything you do is just right. All right. If you start changing the regulations massively, what is it going to do to your proposal process? What is it going to do to your procurement department? What is it going to do to the cores and COTARs, the contract officers and contract technical officers that are going to have to learn more regulations? And sometimes they don't even know the ones that are there now. Fantastic people. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing them, but there's a lot to keep track of. Okay. And so it's tough. It's really difficult understanding all these regs. Now you're going to do this. Hey, let's do alternative procurement processes. Let's do all this other stuff. This is going to upend some stuff, and it might make it actually more expensive for the Defense Department to procure things, because a lot of companies are going to be like, I'm not dealing with it. I'm not dealing with it. I'm going away. So let's see what the unintended ramifications and unintended consequences of this new executive order are going to do. I hope it's good. We shall see.
We shall see.
Just like Copilot. I hope it's a good thing.
Well, yeah, wouldn't it be? If recall's a good thing, then fine. But it doesn't sound like a good thing.
I'm building a Manjaro Linux desktop out in the garage. So yeah, I think it could be a good thing. And I'm going to prepare.
Yeah, just don't run it on a virtual machine on Windows, because it'll be taking snapshots of the whole thing the whole time. So
pretty much.
Yeah.
No, bear
no, it's perfectly safe. Yeah. Thank you, Josh. Well, I couldn't resist this story. Brian Eno, awesome musician, produced all kinds of great stuff. My Life in the Bush of Ghosts with David Byrne, one of my favorite albums. I love that thing. I played it till the grooves were worn out, as they say. Also, New York Times crossword clue, bar none. But you may not know this, but listen to this sound. Windows 95 had this ethereal, wind chimey sounding tone that played while it was slowly chugging to life. So when it was booting, it played this chimey sound. Eno wrote that chime. I mean, somebody had to, right? I mean, nobody would vote for Bruce's farting sound or that steam whistle thing that Steph wanted. So we hired Eno, and Eno wrote a bunch of cool sounds. Actually, I think it was like 80 something sounds that Eno submitted, and they picked this one. Well, the United States Library of Congress, at least for a little while longer, until somebody realizes the word libraries in something and they go try to burn it down or whatever. But I mean, it has something called the Significant Sound Archive, which I'd never heard of. They added Celine Dion this year, Elton John, Miles Davis. How could Miles Davis not be in the Significant Sound Archive? Tracy Chapman, Amy Winehouse, all those things are in there. Minecraft Alpha The sound from that was added this year too. That was the first iteration of Minecraft. But Eno brought those 84 sounds to Microsoft, and they picked this one. I mean, there's other reasons to put Eno in this significant sound collection than just this one sound. But this Windows 95 thing was a big change in the world, right? And a lot of us remember it not really fondly. I mean, Windows 95 was buggy, but it was a big improvement over Windows 3.11 when it first came out. And back then, when they called it Windows 95, it actually came out in 95, unlike today where they call it Windows 10 and it comes out in 15 or whatever. But it didn't have a TCP/IP stack, so you had to install something like Novell to actually get it to connect to anything. But you know, when you did get to hear Eno when it was booting just before it locked up. That's right. Well, that's the news. Thanks, Josh. And I will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.